The small town of Hudson probably can't stop a proposed ICE detention facility if it tried. Democrats prepare to pass a pro-union bill with every expectation the Democratic governor will kill it. Families in Evergreen struggle with a school shooting investigation being closed without answers.
I felt a sense of betrayal in that we've been waiting for answers and promised answers, and we still have not gotten them.
And Colorado's cuts to Medicaid are leaving patients and families confused and worried. That's tonight on Next. Local and state leaders across America are scrambling to prevent the Trump administration from building out a network of warehouses to hold immigrants for deportation. What the acting director of ICE once said would be like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Our Spencer Soisher found ICE's plan to convert a prison in Hudson may be difficult to stop.
I know the town council, you guys cannot do anything about it.
Hudson's options to stop an ICE detention center are about as limited as the video system for the town's council meeting.
I know that you can say no.
Next.
It's not a matter of what you can or can't do, it's do you want to.
The 1,250-bed prison is privately owned by the Highlands Real Estate Investment Group, and documents obtained by the ACLU show ICE is planning to pay the GEO Group to run it.
I am encouraging the town to rethink this idea.
Even if the town wanted to, methods that other communities have tried to stop detention centers from opening may not work for Hudson. In New Mexico Thursday, the Democratic governor signed a new law that bans local and state governments from contracting with ICE to run detention centers. A law like that in Colorado wouldn't do anything for Hudson. The town does not own or operate the prison. In El Paso this week, the city council voted to explore a moratorium on permitting and zoning for new ICE detention facilities. Hudson's town manager told us it does not have the ability to outlaw immigration enforcement within the town. We also looked into questions about if there's enough water available in Hudson for the facility. Turns out that Hudson does have a tight water rights situation, but the correctional facility has built-in water rights set aside.
So regardless of whether you feel like you have control of the issue now, you will be responsible and accountable for what happens next.
The town told us again today it has not been given information by GEO, the private prison company operator, about the future of the site, either confirming or denying plans that they want to use it this particular way, Kyle.
If ICE is looking for a facility with the least possible resistance, this is tailor-made for it.
Right, we got private to private.
Yep.
It's not all that far from an airport, really not all that far from a metropolitan area. That doesn't seem like there's a great or really obvious way to stop it. I would agree that that seems like a prime pick for them to do it.
Yeah, no local or state authorities collaborating on the facility who could pull their support, right? Yeah, it's very kind of isolated and packaged off if ICE wants to move on it. Spencer Soisher, thank you. A small local airline is facing questions after reports that it's moving detainees around the country for ICE. Denver City Council just rejected an airport lease for Key Lime Air last month. Now the University of Colorado is being pushed to get out of its contract with Key Lime. Since 2023, Key Lime has had a deal with CU Boulder to transport its basketball teams to away games. This contract runs through 2028. Key Lime has faced protests for months after human rights organizations began tracking their flights to ICE facilities. Protesters gathered before a CU Regents meeting today, urging the Regents to cancel that airline contract. Regent Wanda James, a Democrat who we should say is running for Congress, says she is looking at putting that contract up for a vote.
We are chauffeuring our Black and Latino student athletes around America on an airline that may also be deporting their families. I can't imagine what that must feel like for our student athletes who are caught in the middle of this. It's a moral issue.
CU spokesperson told us the university system typically does not ask companies to disclose their other business partners when signing a contract. We reached out to Key Lime Air and have not heard back. Workers at the JBS Meatpacking plant in Greeley could strike soon after an overwhelming vote in favor of that yesterday. It would be the first strike in the plant's history, and it comes after years of complaints about unsafe and illegal working conditions there. 99% of union members voted to authorize the strike over unfair labor practices. The union, which represents about 3,800 workers at the plant in Greeley, has been negotiating a new contract for more than 8 months. The union hasn't announced a timeline for any potential strike. JBS says it wants the union to take a national agreement that the company offered several unions last year. The company says that deal includes a wage increase and a pension. Last year, a class action lawsuit was filed on behalf of Haitian workers at the plant in Greeley. They say the company is intentionally recruiting Haitian immigrants and then putting them in substandard living and working conditions. Progressives at the state capitol are reviving an effort to strengthen union bargaining power in this state. But Democratic Governor Jared Polis has made clear in previous years he will not change labor laws without the support of the business lobby. He'll even veto it if it passes. Federal law allows employees to unionize with a simple majority vote, but Colorado adds another step. The state's long-standing Labor Peace Act requires a second supermajority vote before unions can take certain fees from non-union employees. Progressive Democrats passed a bill to repeal that second vote last year. They argue that unions provide protection to all employees in or out of the union, so all employees should pay union fees. The governor vetoed that last year, said Colorado's labor law protects worker choice and creates stability between unions and employers. The bill sponsors are going to try again this year, saying they're willing to negotiate, but they're not going to drop it.
The affordability crisis didn't go away. We are providing a clear opportunity to the governor to pass a bill that will lead wages to increase in his state. I want to give the governor, whether it's Polis or the next governor, the chance to do the right thing and pass this law. And I think it's important for us to force the issue every single year.
As you heard there, a lot of Democrats expect Governor Polis to block the bill again this year if it passes, and then next year it will be brought back up with a different governor in office when Polis is term limited out. The investigation into the Evergreen High School shooting is now closed. The community's questions about what happened there still very much open. Our Mark Salinger spoke with families about the answers they may never get.
5 months after fear and chaos filled this school, answers and accountability are hard to come by.
I was baffled.
Frustration.
Disappointment.
Kim, Cindy, and Audrey are all Evergreen High School parents. They learned on Wednesday the investigation into the shooting is finished, and no charges will be filed against the parents of the student who shot 2 classmates before taking his own life.
I felt a sense of betrayal in that we've been waiting for answers and promised answers, and we still have not gotten them.
I was hoping for transparency. I was hoping for tools and details and, maybe hard to read information that led to a path forward that benefited our community.
The sheriff's office says that the investigation suffered because the parents of the shooter declined to talk with investigators. We know the gun was a family heirloom, usually kept in a safe. How he got it or his motive remain unknown.
I think we could put closure to it, really proceed with the healing, knowing details and facts, and we got none of that.
If he didn't have access to the gun, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation.
And when we don't know better, we're just left wondering and conspiring and thinking of the what ifs and how comes.
Those questions may never get answers.
As much as it is a reminder,
Yeah,
I don't think
it is
it's,
a reminder.
it's something that I'm never going to forget that day and how I felt and the weeks afterwards.
5 months later, the case is closed, even if the recovery isn't.
I think that everybody is healing at their own pace, and some have moved on. Some are still very much torn, and that healing process is slower.
If nothing else remains, it's that our community is tight-knit, we love each other very much, and we're embracing one another.
I wanted to know more. Still have lots of questions.
Cindy and Audrey are the president and vice president of the PTSA there. They say their focus now is on the little things, like making sure students have snacks for the room where therapists are still helping kids talk through everything that happened. It's a reminder, Kyle, that healing doesn't happen overnight. It takes months, and it's still happening now.
So obviously, the shooter's deceased. One of the first things we heard about the shooter, maybe 48, 72 hours after the shooting, was that he had been radicalized online by like nihilist types, right? Not necessarily political, but just kind of like out to burn the world down. And then we didn't hear anything else about that.
And of course, that word radicalized online, everybody wanted to know more. Would that be in the investigation? What motive did he have? 5 months later, the investigation's now closed. That's never been brought up again, at least not to the public, Kyle. At least we may never know about that.
And you can understand why that's so unsatisfying for families. Mark Salinger, thank you. Elections officials are leaving their jobs in droves as they face false attacks from the Trump administration.
These aren't faceless bureaucrats. They aren't cogs in a machine. They're also our neighbors.
A new report puts numbers to what we've heard: people fleeing rolls, running elections out of fear and fatigue. And some families were celebrating an extension of their Medicaid benefits until Colorado said, not so fast. President Trump, of course, falsely claims to have won the 2020 election. He repeated that lie at the National Prayer Breakfast this morning. As Trump calls for Republicans to seize control of elections in certain states, it's worth remembering who is actually constitutionally entrusted with those elections. States run elections based on state law, and then each county has a clerk who oversees those elections in Colorado. In our state, 40 counties have elected Republican clerks. That's almost 2/3 of the state's total of clerks. Then there are 16 clerks who are Democrats. The remaining 8 are unaffiliated or nonpartisan clerks. A new report out from Issue 1, a left-to-center political reform group, looked at county clerk turnover in western states. Since 2020, half the clerks have left their jobs, often in the middle of their terms because of personal reasons.
Election officials are under immense stress, immense strain, and one of the reasons for that is so much undue pressure from officials all the way up to the Trump White House who are peddling lies about the integrity of our elections.
Now take, for example, Archuleta County in southwestern Colorado. County voted for Trump. There's a Republican county clerk there. Last year, an anti-government activist firebombed the office shared by the county clerk. That clerk chose to stay in office. 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi is along, and Chris was driving in the car today. You know, sun's shining, you're stuck in traffic, and I'm thinking, do I need the AC? Here we are, beginning of February, turn on the AC, stuck in traffic.
And you probably did. And by the way, Kyle, you're probably going to need that AC again tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, with temperatures that'll be closing in on 70 degrees, perhaps on 1 or 2 of those days. We'll be well into the 60s over the next little while. Look at this across the eastern plains. First Thursday of the month of February. Look at these highs, 65 in Denver. That meant today, of course, was 60 or above. Our 28th day since December the 1st, since the start of meteorological winter at or above 60 degrees. That is now the second most 60-degree days on record in a meteorological winter for us in the Denver area. Things pretty quiet, though we do have an upper-level low spinning off to our southwest. We'll just see a few high clouds from that across southern Colorado tomorrow and Saturday. High pressure dominant, and that will keep us dry and warm over the next little while. We'll do it all over again tomorrow with highs in the mid-60s in Denver. Light winds, though, it will turn a touch breezy tomorrow afternoon, 15 to 20 mile-an-hour winds, and warm, mostly sunny for tomorrow. The little saving grace with this warm stretch here is that we are talking about, generally speaking, light winds along the front range, though in the foothills will turn a little blustery on Saturday with some 30 to 40 mile-an-hour winds on Saturday afternoon. But generally speaking, those winds not going to be much of a factor. Then for the middle of next week, we cool down with some good news. If you're hoping for some snow in the mountains, I've got a pattern change on the long-range outlook with an active pattern for the mountains starting up the middle of next week and several rounds of snow starting again mid-next week, and that could last well into the following weekend and the following week. So in Denver, lighter amounts of rain, snow for us here in town, but again, in the mountains where we really need that snow, it looks like we're going to start to get a more active pattern for the middle of next week, which is, knock on wood, some good news and some needed snow in the high country.
Navigating Medicaid benefits is confusing enough, and now there are families left in limbo as the state talks about service cuts. Hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus, and Next is a podcast wherever you find stuff for your ears. The state's Joint Budget Committee said hold up on a few of the Medicaid cuts that would have impacted Coloradans with disabilities. Some families got word of that news this week. They saw it as a big win. The victory did not last long for some of them, and the confusion really began. Our Jaleesa Irizarry is along to sort this out. This is a mess.
Yeah, Kyle, I spoke to all parties involved, and I'm still scratching my head of how this all could have gone so wrong. Last week, the Joint Budget Committee voted to deny some of the program reductions for now, with plans to revisit next fiscal year. That pause did not include an age gap on at least one service, but some messaging parents received suggests otherwise.
Yep, I will bring it up.
24 hours ago, Jordan Fekovic was stoked. She received this notice saying that her son would keep key services she's been fighting for. The message from her case manager read, after a recent meeting between the state and HCPF, it was determined that children under the age of 6 will again qualify for community connector services. But the state says nope, that age limit still applies. Case managers were just told to pause talking about it.
Okay, so now I'm like so confused.
State leaders say case managers were given guidance to stop talking about the age limit to those parents with kids under 6 while they worked on different wording to align with federal guidance. But the age limit would still take effect come April 1st. HCPF says that language used in this message didn't come from them.
How can you word something like this and expect parents to be so ecstatic to, have a little wiggle room of extra support and then them be like, no, it's just the terminology that we used. So, sorry.
So the state says Jordan's son will more than likely lose his community connector services. Rocky Mountain Human Services, the agency that sent out that message, did apologize tonight, saying they are working to update parents as quickly as possible while meeting state expectations. Kyle?
I mean, an apology is good, right? It's cruel because people are trying to make plans for their family and for their finances. Do we know how many families were impacted by this?
We did ask the agency that question. We haven't heard back from them, but we don't know if this is just one case manager that sent this out to her specific or their specific clients, or if it was kind of a blanket message that all case managers sent out. We're still waiting to hear back.
All right, Julie Sayers, thank you very much. You get the final word. Your feedback is next. Here she comes. Thank you. The most Colorado thing we saw today is the combination of two of Colorado's favorite things that cannot be combined in the city of Denver: dogs and beer. Anna from Winter Park sent us a photo of a dog on a bar stool at Fraser River Beer Company in Grand County. Bar even had some biscuits out for him there. That looks like Colorado to me, but remember, years ago, Denver banned dogs in breweries. They said they got a bunch of complaints, so we filed an open records request, and it turned out it was a single dog on a table at the now defunct Jagged Mountain. That dog not having the same problem. Feedback tonight via text. Can you explain why people who have been captured by ICE are not immediately deported and why there is a need to house them, like at detention centers similar to the one being proposed in Hudson? That's a very good question. Important to remember that all people inside the U.S., citizens, non-citizens, are entitled by the Constitution to due process. Some of the people being picked up by ICE have already been adjudicated for removal, right? A judge has said it's time to go. But not everybody. Other people being picked up by ICE are still working their way through that legal process, and they have the legal right under the law for that to play out. We also know, based on published reports, that some of the people being grabbed by ICE are U.S. citizens or people who are in this country legally. And if they're at least in detention as opposed to immediately deported, they have the opportunity to raise their hand, hopefully with an attorney, and say, you wrongly brought me in, now let me out. It's a very good question, but that is the reason why people are not just immediately grabbed off the streets and put on a plane. We'll see you next time.